You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Revolution 250. This is where we look at events that took place 250 years ago this week. This is from the American Revolution Podcast, a short bonus episode to remind you about these important anniversaries from the Revolutionary War. This week, we remember the destruction of Falmouth on October 18th, 1775. Last week, I mentioned that the British Navy, which was responsible for supplying the British Army in Boston, began raiding towns up and down the East Coast, demanding supplies from hostile locals. Many officers also believed that they should use more violence to remind the colonists that there were costs to rebellion and rejecting the king's peace. Admiral Graves sent a fleet from Boston up to the north looking for towns to loot and destroy. He deployed the fleet under the command of Lieutenant Henry Mowat, an experienced military officer who had confronted the Patriots before. Mowat had commanded the deployment that Graves sent to Portsmouth, New Hampshire back in December of 1774. This was part of a mission to secure Fort William and Mary, and ended up sparking a local militia attack on the fort before Mowat could even arrive. And that was before the war even began. In the spring of 1775, Mowat had sailed to Falmouth, which was in the northern district of Massachusetts, modern-day Portland, Maine, to protect a loyalist who was trying to repair and launch a ship there in violation of the colonial boycott. The work took several weeks, during which time Lexington and Concord happened and set off patriots everywhere. A group of several hundred local patriots attempted to capture Mowat's ship, the Canso. The ship was prepared to fight off any attempt to take it, but the militia did capture Mowat himself, who had the misfortune of being ashore during the raid. Mowat's second-in-command threatened to level the town unless the militia released Mowat, which they did a short time later. This event is sometimes called Thompson's War, after the militia commander who led that raid. Months later, in October, Mowat was tasked with making examples of some rebel towns along the coast. He was given a list of towns where he should make an example. These included Marblehead, Salem, Newburyport, Gloucester, Portsmouth, Ipswich, Saco, Falmouth, and Machias. Mowat had a fleet of 6 ships, but he only had about 100 men. Therefore, he could only wreak his destruction by bombarding the town from the water. Landing such a small force would only invite a larger group of local militia to attack and defeat them. Mowat sailed past several towns, but did not think these would make good examples. He did, however, think Falmouth, where he had been held prisoner by the rebels, would be a good target. On October 17, 1775, he brought his fleet to the town. He sent an officer ashore to announce to the townspeople that they had 2 hours before he would open fire and destroy the town. The locals hoped Mowat was bluffing or that they could talk him out of it. They sent someone to the ship to try to buy their way out of the destruction by providing supplies and calling on him for mercy. Mowat, however, was not there to threaten them, just to collect food. His goal was destruction, or what Mowat himself put it to, quote, execute a just punishment. As it was getting late in the day, he agreed to withhold fire until the following morning if the town turned over its arms. The town came back with less than a dozen muskets, but that was enough to get Mowat to delay until morning. The following morning, there was another short delay to remove some women and children who were still in town, but after that, late morning, the fleet opened fire. Falmouth consisted of less than 150 homes, maybe 400 buildings total if you count all the barns and warehouses, but because the buildings were built far apart from one another, burning each building took time. The fleet spent about 9 hours firing on the town, completely destroying about 75% of the buildings. Although Mowat had authority to destroy multiple towns up and down the coast, he decided that Falmouth was a good enough example. He had pretty much used up all of his ammunition on this lengthy bombardment. As I said, because the buildings were far apart, he was unable to rely on fire spreading through the town on its own, so his men had to fire on each house individually, which is what took so much time and ammunition. The destruction of the small town left hundreds of families homeless just as the winter season was getting started. Many had to leave town to find shelter elsewhere. Falmouth itself never really recovered until after the war ended. The attack, however, did not inspire fear so much as it angered New Englanders who supported the Patriots even more as a result of this attack. I hope you've enjoyed this Revolution 250 moment. I originally covered this event in episode 74 of the American Revolution podcast. You can go look at that on my blog at blog.amrevpodcast.com. I also encourage you to subscribe for free on whatever podcast platform you like. Thanks again for listening to this Revolution 250 moment from the American Revolution podcast.